Hello, everyone. Welcome to Criminal Cases Today. In today's video, we'll explore the disappearance of Michaela Joy Garrett, a 9-year-old girl who went missing one quiet morning in Hayward, California, leaving everyone in shock. Get ready for a mystery that has challenged investigators and shaken the hearts of the community. Stay tuned as we reveal the details of this harrowing case and the surprising twists and turns. Let's get started. It was a Saturday morning in November 1988, the kind of day when the sun shines softly in the sky, promising another one of those innocent childhood adventures. Michaela, a 9-year-old girl with light brown hair and a smile that lit up her face, had just finished her breakfast. As usual, she sat at the table with her family, where the smell of fresh pancakes and coffee filled the air. The house was filled with laughter and lively conversation, the typical morning of a happy home. Outside, the birds were singing, and the autumn breeze carried with it the scent of dry leaves. Everything seemed perfect. It was in this peaceful setting that Katrina, Michaela's best friend, appeared at the door. With her curly hair and big eyes, Katrina, also 9, was the kind of child who was full of energy and ideas. She ran up to Sharon, Michaela's mother, and asked in an expectant voice, "Mrs. Sharon, can Michaela and I go to the store to buy some snacks?" Sharon, always concerned for her daughter's safety, answered with a firm no. The streets might seem safe, but she knew that the world had its dangers. Michaela, however, was not the type to give up easily. With bright eyes and a determined expression, she begged, "Please, Mommy. We'll go quickly and be back soon. We promise we'll be careful." Sharon hesitated. She knew that sooner or later, she would have to trust Michaela to face the world outside. And after all, the market wasn't that far away, just a few blocks from home. After a few seconds of silence, she sighed and said, "Okay, but be very careful, and come back quickly." Michaela smiled from ear to ear and, before leaving, gave her mother a tight hug and said, "I love you, Mommy." The two girls got on their scooters, which were their inseparable adventure companions. With the wheels whizzing on the asphalt and the wind blowing in their faces, they headed towards Rainbow Market, a small supermarket on Mission Boulevard that, for them, was a world of possibilities with its shelves full of candy and soda. When they arrived at the market, they parked their scooters right in front of the entrance, eager to begin their little shopping mission. Rainbow Market was a welcoming place, with its walls painted in vibrant colors and a bell that jingled every time someone walked through the door. Inside, the air was a mix of sweet and savory smells, the kind of place where kids felt like they could spend hours exploring. Michaela and Katrina walked through the aisles, laughing and discussing which snacks to choose. They grabbed 2 Mountain Dews, one each, along with some beef jerky and some cherry candies. With their hands full of treats, they left the store, still chatting excitedly about their plans for the upcoming holiday. But in all their excitement, they forgot about the scooters parked outside. When they finally remembered, they realized that one of the scooters was not where they had left it. Katrina looked around, confused. "Where's my scooter?" she asked, a hint of concern in her voice. Michaela, trying not to panic, suggested, "Let's split up and look for it. It must be around here somewhere." They split up, and Michaela was the first to spot the scooter, now 3 parking spaces away from where it had been before, next to a car that looked like it had been there for a while. Without much thought, she ran over to the scooter and bent down to pick it up. Unique, but at that very moment, what was supposed to be just an ordinary Saturday morning turned into a nightmare. A man, who until then had been hiding inside the car, suddenly jumped out. He grabbed Michaela tightly around the waist, and before she could scream or resist, he pushed her into the vehicle. Michaela's heart raced, and panic took over her thoughts. She tried to scream, but the man, fast and strong, silenced her. The car sped off, leaving the Rainbow Market parking lot behind and heading towards Mission Boulevard, towards the city of Union City. Katrina, who was heading back to where Michaela should have been, only saw the car disappearing down the road. Despair took over her little heart. Running back to the store, with tears streaming down her face, Katrina could only stammer to the cashier, "Michaela, she's been taken." Panic spread quickly. The cashier immediately contacted the police, and within minutes, the place was filled with sirens and flashing lights. Katrina also called her father, who arrived as quickly as he could, trying to calm his crying daughter. But how do you calm a child who has just seen her best friend taken away? Meanwhile, at home, Sharon was washing the dishes, lost in thought, when she heard desperate screams coming from outside. Rod, his face pale and eyes wide, ran through the front door, almost out of breath, and said, "Sharon, they took Michaela." Back at the market, a man took her. Sharon's world stopped. Her mind struggled to make sense of those words, but her heart already knew. They rushed to the market, where the scene they found was heartbreaking. Police officers were talking to customers and employees, trying to piece together the puzzle of what had happened. Katrina, still in shock, was taken home by her father, while Sharon and Rod, desperate for answers, stayed behind to talk to the police. In the midst of all the chaos, a dark memory surfaced in Sharon's mind. A week earlier, she had woken up early and found Michaela sitting at the breakfast table, writing. When she asked what she was doing, Michaela replied that she was writing a poem. But what she described to her mother was something that, at the time, seemed like nothing more than a child's overactive imagination, a poem about people trapped in an attic, held captive. At the time, Sharon didn't think much of it, but now, every word of that poem seemed like a terrifying premonition. Could Michaela have somehow foreseen what was about to happen? Hello. Welcome to Criminal Cases Today, the place where we explore the darkest and most intriguing mysteries from around the world. Today, we're going to delve into a case that has left everyone in shock, the disappearance of Michaela Garrett, a story full of suspense and unanswered questions. So, get ready to embark on a journey full of details and surprises. Our destination today is Hayward, California. Hayward is a quaint and welcoming city located in the heart of the San Francisco Bay Area, which has earned it the nickname, the Heart of the Bay. With its quiet streets and peaceful neighborhoods, this city is an ideal place to raise a family. Its neatly lined homes, manicured lawns, and white picket fences exude a sense of security and belonging. The community spirit is strong here, and residents know each other by name and are always ready to help one another. Hayward is also known for its diversity. It is the second most diverse city in California, which is reflected in a vibrant culture. Local schools, like the one Michaela attended, are known for being places where children of all backgrounds feel welcomed and valued. This diversity is an essential part of Hayward's charm, where different cultures blend together to create a rich and. Now, let's talk about Michaela Joy Garrett. Michaela was a 9-year-old girl who, from the moment she was born, brought a special light into the lives of her parents, Sharon and Rod Garrett. She was not an easy child to conceive. For 5 long years, Sharon and Rod went through doctors, treatments and much anticipation until finally, on January 24, 1979, in Oakland, California, Michaela came into the world. Michaela's birth was a true miracle for the Garrett family. Sharon and Rod called her their little blessing. It wasn't long before their family grew even more, with the birth of Libby and Alex, Michaela's younger siblings. In 1986, the Garrett family decided to move to Hayward, looking for a place where they could put down roots and give their children a happy and safe childhood. It was in Hayward that they found the perfect home, a warm and welcoming home that was soon filled with laughter and special moments. Michaela was an adorable child, full of life and curiosity. Her brown hair fell in soft curls over her shoulders, and her eyes shone with the purity and joy that only children have. She was known for her exemplary behavior, always respectful and obedient, which made her parents very proud. Sharon, a devoted and protective mother, always made a point of keeping her children close, especially Michaela, who was the oldest and therefore the most independent. Sharon's protection made sense. In the 1980s, the world seemed more dangerous. There was an increase in kidnappings, especially in California. News of missing children would make any mother nervous, and Sharon was no exception. She knew that even though Hayward was a safe city, she couldn't let her guard down. And then came November 19, 1988. It was a crisp fall morning, and the leaves on the trees painted the streets in shades of gold and red. It was the first day of Thanksgiving, a time the Garrett family always looked forward to. That morning, Michaela and her best friend, Katrina, were full of excitement. The 2 girls, 4th graders, had planned to go to the grocery store alone, something that felt like a big step toward independence. For Michaela and Katrina, this was a small adventure. The grocery store was only 2 blocks from their home, a distance that seemed safe. They were both beaming, happy to be able to do something grown-up without adult supervision. They hopped on their scooters and, laughing, set off towards Rainbow Market, a small supermarket that was familiar to both of them. But what started as a happy morning soon turned into a nightmare. What the girls didn't know was that there was a man watching them, hiding in the shadows, waiting for the right moment to strike. He was a stranger, but he was about to change the lives of everyone involved forever. After the police arrived at the scene, they began their investigation. The first person to be interviewed was Rona, the cashier at the store where the girls bought snacks. Rona remembered the suspect well, a white man, around 30 years old, with a mustache. She mentioned that the man's car was either burgundy or brown, but she couldn't identify the make or model. What caught her attention was the man's strange behavior. He didn't go into the store, but stood outside, watching everything through the window, as if he was planning something. The police acted quickly. A sketch artist was called in to create a sketch of the suspect, based on Rona's description. The image was distributed to all the police stations in the area and to the media. The authorities hoped that someone would recognize the man and help solve the case. In the parking lot, Michaela's scooter was found. She was lying on the ground, like a silent reminder of what had happened. The police collected the scooter as evidence and found a fingerprint on the handle. It was an important clue, but unfortunately, it was not enough to immediately identify the kidnapper. The clues were few and far between, and the anguish grew as time passed. By the end of the first day, the FBI had joined the investigation. Michaela's case was far from an isolated event. The FBI was aware of a recent spate of child disappearances and feared that Michaela's case was connected to these other disappearances. They knew that time was of the essence and that every second lost diminished the chances of finding Michaela safely. The police believed that Katrina, Michaela's best friend, might have more information. 2 days after the kidnapping, investigators went to Katrina's house. Sitting in the living room, with Katrina's parents nearby, they began asking the girl questions. What she revealed left everyone stunned. The description of the man she gave was completely different from the one the store cashier had provided. Katrina described the man in a way that sent shivers down the spines of even the most experienced investigators. She said he looked to be in his 20s, with white skin, but what caught her attention the most was his long, dirty blonde hair, as if he hadn't washed it in a long time. His face was marked by deep scars, the result of severe acne, which made his appearance even more frightening. But what really stuck in Katrina's memory were the man's eyes. She said he had fox eyes, which shone in a strange way and seemed to penetrate deep inside, but at the same time, he didn't really see. He looked right at me, Katrina explained, but it was as if I wasn't there, as if he was seeing through me. Katrina was also able to remember some details about his car. It was a beige, square-shaped vehicle with dented bodywork, as if it had been in several accidents. This new description put investigators on high alert, because they realized they had missed the most important 48 hours, the ones in which the chances of finding the missing person were even higher. While they were busy searching for the wrong person, the real kidnapper had gotten even further away. Quickly, all the posters were remade with this new description and redistributed around the city, in the hope that someone might have seen something. The community's response was immediate. Volunteers began showing up in droves, determined to help in any way they could. They went from house to house, handing out the new posters and asking people if they had seen anything strange. On the posters was a detailed description of the clothes Michaela was wearing the day she disappeared. She was wearing a white t-shirt with the word jeans printed on the front, blue jeans rolled up at the ankles, black Mary Jane shoes, and colorful feather-shaped earrings. But despite all the efforts, no one seemed to know anything, and no concrete leads emerged. With no new information available, police decided to expand their search to more remote and isolated areas in the hope of finding some sign of Michaela. They focused on places like Garin National Park and Niles Canyon, which were just a few minutes' drive from the Garrett family home. One tip caught investigators' attention: 3 hikers reported seeing footprints in the woods that appeared to belong to an adult and a child. The tracks led investigators to an old blanket and some empty snack bags. This led them to believe that the kidnapper might have taken Michaela to a hidden place where no one would find her. To intensify the search, helicopters equipped with thermal cameras were called in, capable of detecting heat in the dense vegetation. Teams of police on horseback and on foot also searched every inch of the surrounding area. But despite all their efforts, it seemed that Michaela and her kidnapper had simply disappeared without a trace. Michaela's disappearance soon gained national attention. Her story was featured on TV shows like Unsolved Mysteries, where unsolved cases were featured in the hope that someone, somewhere, would know something that could help. It was also one of the first cases featured on the hit show, America's Most Wanted. Michaela's face was plastered on milk cartons that were distributed nationwide, and the Child Find program printed more than 50 million postcards with her photo, a description of the clothes she was wearing, and a sketch of the kidnapper as described by Katrina. Even American football player Joe Montana, a star at the time, got involved in the case, making an emotional appeal to the public asking anyone with information to contact the police. In addition, a $50,000 reward fund was set up in the hope that the money would encourage someone to come forward. In the first year after her disappearance, the police received more than 5,000 tips, but most of them went nowhere. Still, no one was willing to give up. Sharon, Michaela's mother, didn't sit still either. Desperate to find her daughter, she followed several leads on her own, some of which took her as far away as Russia, but unfortunately, none of these leads yielded any results. It took 4 years for a new, more promising lead to emerge. During that time, more than 15,000 tips were investigated, but none of them managed to solve the case. It was between 1991 and 1992 that an Indiana inmate named Roger Haggard claimed to know what had happened to Michaela. He was serving an 11-year sentence for robbery and said he had helped a friend bury Michaela's body in a gladiolus field in Union City. Initially, investigators didn't pay much attention to Haggard, thinking it might just be another of the many rumors that had surfaced over the years. But when Haggard realized he wasn't being taken seriously, he decided to take the story to the media. In 1992, he wrote a letter claiming to know who had kidnapped Michaela and where she was buried. He promised to lead investigators to her body. Media pressure and public outcry forced investigators to pay more attention to Haggard's story. They brought him to California to testify in court, hoping that they might finally find some answers to Michaela's disappearance. Haggard seemed to be the Garrett family's last hope of finally finding out what happened to Michaela. He promised something that filled everyone's hearts with a mixture of relief and anxiety. Not only would he show them where Michaela was buried, but he would also reveal where the person responsible for her disappearance lived. The news gave investigators new life, and the next day they followed Haggard to a field, hoping to find the answers they had been seeking for so long. The field was vast and isolated, a place that seemed perfect for hiding a terrible secret. For 8 hours, they searched every inch of the land, digging and turning over the earth, looking for any sign that might confirm Haggard's words. The atmosphere was tense, every sound of a bird or rustle of leaves heightened the anticipation. But suddenly, what seemed like a breakthrough waiting to happen turned into a bitter twist. Haggard, with a look of guilt and sadness, admitted that he had lied. He had made up the entire story. He said he did it because he wanted to give the Garrett family some kind of peace, a sense of closure, even if it was based on a lie. The disappointment was crushing. Instead of finding answers, the Garrett family found themselves once again shrouded in uncertainty and renewed pain. Haggard was immediately charged with perjury, sentenced to 6 more years in prison for his cruel actions, and ordered to pay a $6,000 fine to Michaela's family. For Sharon and Rod Garrett, this lie was an open wound in a long-standing pain. But that wasn't the only trail investigators were following. While Haggard was trying to manipulate the system, another sinister figure was already on the police radar. The man, known only as Binder, was a 43-year-old sewage treatment plant worker who was married with children. At first glance, he might have seemed like an ordinary man, but his behavior had caught the attention of concerned parents in the local community. Binder had a peculiar and unsettling demeanor. Neighborhood parents reported that he would often send gifts and money to young girls, trying to get close to them in a way that seemed wrong. Investigation revealed that he drove a light blue van that was practically a mobile playground. Inside the van were pictures of young children, children's drawings made with crayons, and even Bible verses, as if he were trying to create a welcoming and trusting atmosphere in which to lure his victims. Although he had been arrested once for trying to lure 2 young girls into his van, the charges against Binder were dropped, leaving him free to continue his disturbing behavior. But there was something even more unsettling about him. Binder had a strange habit of getting involved in missing child cases, often appearing out of nowhere to offer help or comfort to the devastated families. When Michaela disappeared, Binder quickly reached out to Sharon Garrett, offering words of comfort that, to Sharon, sounded more like veiled threats. And he did the same for the mother of Amber Schwartz, the 7-year-old girl who had disappeared just a few months before Michaela. Both Sharon and Amber's mother told police that they sensed something deeply wrong with Binder. He seemed overly interested in the details of the disappearances, almost as if he were reliving something personal. And what set off alarm bells even louder was the discovery of a letter Binder sent to police shortly after Amber's disappearance. In the letter, he stated, almost prophetically, that the next child to disappear would be a 9-year-old girl. And, chillingly, 9-year-old Michaela was the next to disappear. The oddities didn't stop there. In December, Binder sent a Christmas card to an FBI psychologist. The card featured a photo of a little girl holding up 4 fingers. A few days later, Amanda Campbell, a 4-year-old girl, disappeared from her home in Fairfield. Binder had been linked to so many disappearances that his name became synonymous with fear and distrust in the community. But despite all the coincidences, the police were unable to find any concrete evidence against Binder. Eventually, the investigation into him began to cool. Binder, feeling persecuted, sued the city of Fairfield for defamation and won the case, which only increased the frustration of the families of the missing children. Investigators, although reluctant, decided to remove Binder from the list of suspects, believing that he was simply seeking attention and a central role in all these tragedies. But Michaela's disappearance remained a mystery. The media would not let the case die, and the public continued to be captivated by each new twist. Another name that appeared in the investigation was Curtis Dean Anderson. Anderson was a dangerous criminal, captured and arrested in August 2000. He confessed to kidnapping and killing Sienna Fairchild, a 7-year-old girl, in 1999. In an interview with the FBI in 2007, Anderson made a shocking confession. He said that he had taken the lives of 13 other women and girls. And among these victims, he claimed to be responsible for the disappearance of Amber Schwartz, the same girl who mysteriously disappeared like Michaela. Anderson even described how he saw Amber standing on a street corner before deciding to kidnap her. But before he could give more details and perhaps clarify once and for all what happened to Michaela, Anderson died on December 9, 2007, a victim of kidney and liver failure. His death left more questions than answers. After Anderson's death, detectives revisited his background and discovered something alarming. In 1980, he was stopped by the police while driving a brown 1977 Chevy sedan. This car exactly matched the description given by Katrina. Despite everything, hope was not completely lost. Even though Curtis Dean Anderson's death left investigators with no more clues about what really happened to Michaela, they did not give up. The case was brought back into the spotlight and with it, new clues and more public attention. The story took a new turn in August 2012, when Wesley Sherman, who was part of the feared crime duo known as the Speed Freaks, contacted the Stockton record radio station. Wesley was motivated to speak out after his partner, Loren Herzog, took his own life in January of that year. Wesley revealed something that left everyone chilled. His partner Herzog looked very much like the sketch of the suspect in Michaela's case. This resemblance piqued the interest of investigators once again. Following Wesley's lead, detectives began excavating an area in Linden where the criminal duo had allegedly hidden the remains of several victims. The remains they found shocked everyone, but Michaela's case remained unsolved. Investigators, however, did not give up. They knew that one day they would find the missing piece of this dark puzzle. 8 long years passed before a truly promising lead emerged. The mystery, which had already become part of the public imagination, was about to take a new leap. And then, on December 21, 2020, something happened that no one expected. The Hayward Police Department and the FBI announced an arrest in Michaela's case. David Misch, 59, was accused of kidnapping and taking Michaela's life. New technology allowed fingerprints taken from Michaela's scooter in 1988 to be linked to David. David Emery Misch was born on February 19, 1961, in Chicago, Illinois. Not much is known about his early life, but by the age of 16, he had already begun a life of crime. In 1977, he was convicted of breaking and entering and violently attacking a maid. Just a year later, he was released on parole. Less than a year after his release, in February 1979, he was charged again, this time with kidnapping and assault with a deadly weapon. Once again, he was granted parole in September 1981. David continued his life of crime. In May 1988, he was arrested for robbing a grocery store and sentenced to a year in prison and a year of probation. However, he was released 6 months later, in November of the same year. But David's fate was about to change. In December 1988, Margaret Ball, a longtime friend of David's, was found brutally murdered. Margaret was beaten so severely that one of her teeth was found yards away from her body. Police soon identified David as a suspect, and after finding evidence linking him to the case, he was arrested and sentenced to life in prison. Even while in prison, David's crimes continued to surface. In 2018, DNA evidence linked him to 2 murders in Fremont, California, in 1986. Michelle Xavier, 18, and her best friend, Jennifer Dew, 20, were out celebrating a family member's birthday on February 2, 1986. The two were found dead on the side of the road shortly after midnight. They had been brutally attacked and stripped naked. Michelle's car was found more than 6 miles away in a supermarket parking lot. The case was widely publicized at the time, and rewards were offered, but for years, the mystery remained unsolved. As the years passed, the clues and tips surrounding Michaela Garrett's case began to disappear, and the investigation grew cold, becoming a sad memory. But with the advancement of technology, a surprising twist was brought. After 32 years, a crucial breakthrough in DNA analysis led detectives to David Misch, the man who was finally identified as responsible for Michaela's disappearance and death. Rod Garrett, Michaela's father, made the long drive of over 100 miles to attend the press conference where the big news was announced. With a mixture of sadness and relief, Rod expressed that there was finally a sense of justice and closure to the case that had tormented his family for decades. Misch's identification brought some peace to a father who had suffered for so long. Sadly, Sharon Garrett, Michaela's mother, was unable to attend the press conference. In 2019, Sharon was diagnosed with metastatic cancer, which severely compromised her health. Police Chief Tony Chaplin had the difficult task of reading a statement on her behalf. Sharon shared her inner struggle with the public, revealing that although she had tried to accept the possibility that Michaela might no longer be alive, this acceptance was tied to an idealized vision of her daughter. She imagined her in a peaceful place, surrounded by beauty and peace, rather than a painful reality. The news about David Misch was a devastating blow, confronting Sharon with the harsh reality that her daughter was no longer with us. David Misch's attorney, Ernie Castillo, issued a public statement and was scathing in his criticism of the investigation. He called the way the evidence was gathered and used to charge Misch shaky science. Castillo dismissed the idea that a fingerprint collected 32 years ago could be the definitive piece of evidence as absurd. He argued that the police were simply trying to close the case quickly, and called for the case to be reviewed more carefully. Rod Garrett, who had moved to Texas, still carried a heavy burden of guilt. He felt that he had somehow failed to protect his daughter that fateful morning. The scooter found near the scene of her disappearance was a constant reminder to him that he had failed to prevent the tragedy. This guilt haunted him for years, turning his life into a constant nightmare. Sharon Garrett, tirelessly dedicated to the search for her daughter, turned her grief into action. At first, she waited for a phone call that never came. Over time, she began using the internet as a search engine, creating a blog called Dear Michaela to share her story and keep hope alive. The blog's name was later changed to Road of Searchers. Even when she was diagnosed with cancer, Sharon never gave up. She continued to fight for Michaela's memory and hoped that justice would be served. David Misch's arrest brought a long overdue relief, but it also marked the beginning of the end of Sharon's fight. She passed away in May 2022, knowing that her daughter would finally get the justice she deserved. At the time of this video's release in May 2024, David Misch's trial had not yet concluded. However, for the police and many who followed the case, Misch's arrest was a significant step toward justice. To conclude, I leave you with a touching poem written by Michaela on that November morning. People knock on steel doors. People knock, people kneel. They think of things that aren't real. Outside those steel doors, people walk. People know that outside those doors. People know, people think you can say. People think they can too. They don't have the confidence that you have. They think it's real, the dreams that you have. The dreams that they feel. What did you think of Michaela Joy Garrett's case? If the story touched you as much as it did me, don't forget to like it. Your support makes all the difference and helps us continue to bring you more incredible and intriguing cases. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, take the opportunity to click the subscribe button and activate the bell. This way, you can stay up to date with all our new stories and mysteries that are coming up. We want to hear from you. Leave a comment below telling us what you thought of the video and if there is any other case or mystery that you would like to see here. We love hearing your opinion, and your suggestions really help make the channel even better. And now we say goodbye for today, and we will see you in the next criminal case.